We are still with Barry Stroud's description of philosophy, or what he thinks philosophy should be. And last time we looked at, so he started with, I think he said that philosophy is not just any reflection of self-reflection, but a special type of reflection. And he is building towards explaining what it is. So something might be called philosophy, but it's not philosophy in his sense of the word. And that's because for him philosophy requires particular social conditions to emerge as an activity, as an attitude, or be prosperous as an attitude, possible as an attitude, which he thinks philosophy consists in. And those social conditions mainly have two horns. The first one is social conditions. So philosophy as a discipline, or as an activity, as a collective activity, as something not just individual, but as something social, emerges in a society which is fairly advanced materially. So it has resources to fund some of its members to dedicate themselves to the task of philosophy. And it also must be a benign society in the sense that it has freedom, so people can think and say what they want to say, even if it goes against the basic creed of that society, or basic intuitions of that society. Because obviously people don't stop you from saying or doing things unless they think that it is against their interests or whatever. And so freedom and tolerance of the opposite or different views. So the philosophy in his sense cannot prosper in repressive society. And also cannot prosper in a poor society in that sense. But obviously he doesn't mean that the society in which philosophy will thrive won't be a repressive society in any of its manifestation, or it won't be intolerant or repressive society in all its manifestation. But what is required is, at least to that group or mainstream of a society, is not repressive to and is benign towards at least certain sector of society, or probably majority of society. Majority obviously start with 51%, so it doesn't have to be a huge majority. And also he thinks that society in which philosophy, and he thinks that in modern society philosophy is happening in university, because society resource university and its departments provide them enough money to indulge in their activity without worrying about their livelihood. And that's what has happened in modern Western societies. And it is a sign of civility of the society and progressive nature of the society that they fund philosophy and other subjects which don't have any necessary material applications, even when they have to divert resources from other important social concerns, like providing clean water to poor members of its society, for example. So that's sign of civility. So philosophy in modern society has basically found a home in university as an institution. And according to Barry, Stroud is a good thing and bad thing. Good thing because a bad thing because philosophy has become professionalized. Professionalized in the sense that people think philosophy is some sort of a science, even though it's an abstract or more general science which tries to find answers to, physical, chemical, social, individual facts about our life and the facts about the universe we live in. So in this conception, philosophy consists in creed and theories and ideologies, even though they are different from other creeds and theories and ideologies which are taught in other sciences in its abstraction. Barry Stroud thinks that this is not that good a thing, even though he doesn't deny its use entirely. What he thinks is that what philosophy, but the good thing about university is that it provides people with enough space and freedom and livelihood to indulge in questions for their own sake, and and convey those to students, etc., which force them to be clear and all that. But professionalization of philosophy is not that good. So he also is criticizing mainstream philosophy, not just pseudo philosophy, in which he thinks is practiced in repressive regimes. So now he's getting into his conception of philosophy, and one thing we noticed was that he says that philosophy is not creed, it's not theories, it's not ideology. So the main thrust of philosophy is not to reach certain conclusions, even though it does, because how else you are going to practice your discipline. But philosophers are not married to their conclusion in a way other disciplines are, or should not be married to their conclusion, because their main profession is to question things, to evaluate things. So they're perpetually questioning things. So the only thing which defines philosophy, if we can call it definition, is pure openness. And I talked about this last time, and I think he's going to explain it a bit more. In what we are going to read today. And I did make some critical remarks about the impossibility of pure openness last time. But let's see. I think I missed a couple points here because I forgot to turn it on again. But what I was saying was that one of the last thing which we saw last time at the end was that he started to contrast philosophy with religion. And it's important in this regard because for modern philosophy, religion is a constant reference point. And the reason for that is that philosophy emerged in a period in the world history when civilizational transformation was happening, and modern civilization was supporting the Christian civilization. And Christian civilization was based on religion. And philosophy emerged as a champion of that modern civilization. So, and in a sense, at least initially, also as an alternative to religion. Um, so it developed a critique of religion, especially its belief system, and also its epistemology and all that. So that's why when Barry Stroud is trying to develop his conception of philosophy, he cannot help but reference to religion. So we started seeing in the last video that he started developing a contrast with religion in order to highlight his conception and differentiate his conception of philosophy from religion. And I think he's going to do a bit more in today's reading. So we'll just repeat a bit of what we did last time. So one of the things we already looked at it, so just going to go over it. Results in the form of conclusions reached or proposition established are not what matters for philosophy in his conception. Because I don't regard philosophy as a set of results or doctrines in the sense of conclusions reached or proposition established. It may well be that every society or culture needs ideas or beliefs or doctrines to give sense and direction to their lives, but that's not what philosophy is. So now he contrasts it with philosophy because obviously religion. So religion too is a form of thinking, and it's certainly about matters of great concern to human beings. But I think religious belief or religious thought is not the same as philosophy. Nobody has claimed that, I think. Oh, maybe some people have. Or philosophical thought. As I put it a moment ago, it is compatible with the absence of philosophy, mean religion. Even though it includes beliefs, attitude, and precepts that are based on general ideas about human beings and the world. Such thought and beliefs express a conception of the world or creed, but philosophy, as I see it, is not a creed. So philosophy is not a set of doctrines or set of teachings, according to him. Nor is it the effort to divorce or proceed a creed. Nor is it the effort to discover or produce a creed. But the funny thing is, just as a side, I mean, a lot of philosophers claim that philosophy is not a creed. And I think it makes sense more when they are practicing negative freedom, so to speak, and criticizing the other activities. I think Socrates said that, Plato said that, but they are certainly very much attached to their creed. So it's one thing to actually claim that philosophy is not a creed, but that might not be such in practice, actually. But go back to him, philosophy is not a creed, okay? I think the attitudes or motives out of which philosophy is pursued are not the same as religious attitude or orientation. Obviously, this to an extent assumes that you know what religious attitudes are or orientations are. And I'm not denying that he doesn't know it, but I mean, does he know all the manifestations, or at least most of the manifestation, or majority of the manifestation of religious attitude or orientation? I don't know. So it might be that Jesse is talking about, he has a conception of religion and religious attitude in his mind, and probably derived from the society around him. And then he's generalizing it and putting it against his own conception of philosophy, just to highlight the contrast, I guess. So, in a sense, to be fair to him, he's not describing what religion is. He's actually describing what philosophy is. So that's I think the attitudes or motives out of which philosophy is pursued are not the same as a typically religious attitude or orientation. I don't really know what typically religious attitude is. But, let's say some of the people who might listen, they might know what it is. A philosopher is not fundamentally at peace with the world. What does that mean? I mean, Heidegger probably would say philosopher is the one who is fundamentally at peace with the world. Say, what he means is that because philosophy, in his sense, and this is only one. This is my understanding right now, but it might change as we go ahead. So what does it mean that philosopher is not fundamentally at peace with the world? In this sense, probably this, and that's one of the meaning it can attain. So, because philosophy, as he see it, is an attitude of I guess to use Heidegger's terminology, prime wonder, although you might not like it, prime wonder. So that's where philosophy emerged from. And it's based on some sort of Socratic ignorance, meaning you start from the space of total ignorance, in that you think that you don't know anything, and whatever you know is because you can always question it, so you don't really know. And not just that you don't know, but there's some sort of understanding that you will never actually know. Or at least not fully. So you are always with this sense of wonder. You always want to know the reality, but whatever you know is not going to be actual knowledge, because you can always question it. So some such thing. So if your attitude is like that, perpetual questioning, perpetual mistrust, in a good sense of a word, of whatever is around you and whatever knowledge you have, then you won't be at peace with the world, because to be at peace in the world, he's not meaning that, but let's say in the world and with the world, or anything for that matter, you need to be content with how things are, in a sense. Not just a contingent thing, but how things are in more ontological sense, that you are content with your position in the world, um, as a limited being, and you are content with your fate in the world as a contingent being, as a limited being, and you are not you are sort of at peace with your limits. And I'm talking about ultimate limits, not the limits which are contingent limits which we can actually overcome. So it seems like his conception of philosophy, because it's based on some understanding of overcoming human limits, where we can have God's eyes view, I guess, and but also the understanding that we can never reach that. We can never reach that position, but still, it's worthwhile to keep on the journey of reaching that position. Then you are not going to be at peace with the world. And he's also assuming that religion is at peace with the world. I don't know about that, because there are religious attitudes which might not be at peace with the world. And I don't know how much he has actually looked at the religious experience of the great scholars and mystics and Sufis and monastics and rabbis and prophets and their inner experiences. There's a whole wealth of literature. I think so I don't know how much he has looked at it. But as I said, he is not trying to tell us what religion is or religious attitude, but he is trying to tell us what philosophical attitude. So a philosopher, for Barry Stroud, is not fundamentally at peace with the world. So a philosopher is not fundamentally at peace with the world. I don't know how he would square it with a Calvinist, for example. A Calvinist is not at peace with the world in the sense that, at least some interpretation of it. So you don't know whether you are the elect, because only the elect few can, attain salvation. So you are perpetually only so, but the only way you can know that is through your success in this world. And even when you succeed doesn't mean that it is the real success. So you're always trying to prove to yourself that you are the elect. So if you have that sort of religious attitude, that is not at peace with the world. But obviously he's talking about something else which we just talked about, that is not at peace with your position and station in the world, not accepting your limits, but somehow also knowing that you can never overcome those limits, and probably accepting that dilemma and not accepting it at the same time. That's what creates a philosopher in his sense. A philosopher is not fundamentally at peace with the world. He doesn't, as a philosopher, or she doesn't, as a philosopher, regard herself as somewhat ultimately in good hands and safe, and so willing to acquiesce in something that can or must be accepted without being understood. I think that this is very disingenuous, because it's just creating a religious boogeyman in order to illustrate what philosophy for him is. So for him, religious person is at peace because they think they are in the safe hands of God or belief, and they never have doubts of. But that's just not. Anyway, doubt is very much a part of many religious traditions. And no believer who really understands religions. Well, he might be in safe hands, but it doesn't mean that he or she knows that what she is doing is the right thing to do, etc. Anyway, but his meaning is clear. Of course, a philosopher, like everyone, must acquiesce in the face of facts, okay? Or why must? Or at least of the facts that cannot be made otherwise. So he is not denying the reality totally. Yeah, so that proves the point I was trying to make, that the basic understanding is that you don't accept your limits, but you also accept in the sense that there are at least limits in the factual sense you will never be able to overcome. But you will try to overcome them anyway. So that's what creates, at least this is one way of understanding. And here he comes. But philosophy depends on undying curiosity. So you are never satisfied. So that's the curiosity. It's undying because, as I said, philosophy for him is pure openness. And it's undying because you are never sure that what you have got is what there is. So you never reach the ultimate truth, and probably you can never reach the ultimate truth, but you still think that it's desirable to search for the truth. So that's what gives you undying curiosity. So that undying curiosity is what philosophy, or the basis of philosophy. And that curiosity is the basis of all knowledge and everything. But what differentiates philosophy is that philosophy doesn't stop before you should stop. So other religion and sciences stop, one step, early, because they have other purposes like practical or whatever. But philosophy doesn't have any practical goal, anything. That's why it can keep. So that's sort of an ideal type. But philosophy depends on undying curiosity and the pursuit of limitless inquiry. See, limitless inquiry. It arises out of a wish or an attempt to grasp the world as it is open to our view. And so that's what I was saying, that it's a limitless inquiry, but you know that you are not limitless, but you still think that it's worthwhile. So that's what creates the basic not being at peace with the world. So it arises out of. So even if it was a limitless inquiry, and you thought that you would one day be able to reach the truth, there would have been some closure. But there's no such closure in philosophy. Because even if you arrive at the supposedly final conclusion, you can still question it. The difficulty is to get the right or the intellectually satisfying view of it. Philosophy is interesting and challenging to me personally only insofar as there is no otherworldly theological account of things. Again, religion, or even philosophies which are pseudo-religious philosophies. Philosophy is interesting and challenging to me with otherworldly. Why you can't have otherworldly theological account and combine it with this philosophy? And we go back to this debate about whether philosophy is compatible with the religion, because you think that you have the truth, so then you can't pretend that you are actually open or undyingly curious, because once you know that you know the reality, that your curiosity obviously is not the same. So that's what he mean, I think. If I really thought there were, I believe I would not find serious thought about much matters interesting. But even if there are other worldly theological accounts, you can always question them because nobody knows whether they are correct unless we die. And even once we die, we might not know. So I don't know what's the fuss about it. But I think it goes back to how modern philosophy actually emerged. Because if you looked at, Aquinas and Augustine and other Christian saints and Jewish saints or philosophers and Islamic philosophers like Ghazali and, even late people like Mujaddid al-Fasani and these people, if you look at their lives, you'll see that they had a lot of curiosity. So philosophy is interesting, unless you think that, the philosophy can't have certain worldview. So. But I think it goes back to the origin of modern philosophy. Anyway, so if I really thought there were, I believe I would not find serious thought about such matters interesting or rewarding in the way philosophy can be. The very effort would seem to founder on the epistemic difficulty of how far we could hope to penetrate the ultimately inscrutable ways of God or whatever else was thought to be in charge. Seem to founder on the epistemic difficulty. Anyway, I think we should stop here and we'll look at it. I actually didn't plan, and since I don't plan these, but I didn't think that it will require that many videos. But since at least I'm learning in every video, I'm learning new things. That's what happens when you actually talk about what you're thinking and try to explain to others, even if it is the wall. So we'll continue this in the next video. Thank you.